Oh, Jesus, should have been that soon. Motion by Holton and supported by Mike. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Minutes are accepted. July 25th, special meeting minutes.
Yes.
A lot shorter.
I'll move that we approve minutes from July 25th. Are you ready? As presented.
Support.
Second.
All in favor? All right,
No, you.
I can vote.
Yeah.
So we're going to accept the minutes as written. So this brings us to our first public comment period. Please limit your comments to 5 minutes and state your name and if you'd like where you opt with. Anybody have public comment? Campbell's the first to raise his hand.
Campbell Cloud, 201 North High Street. I see we've got pretty full action items here. So I'm interested in pressurizing the main, cleaning that, and the sewer project as far as the Fairway View project sewer capacity study. So on that, I think my understanding is that design capacity for the treatment system is about 132,000 gallons. Is that, assuming that is it, I know you have a permit number, you have an operating number, generally run about 90% of capacity, so we're about 118. And our peak flow in July, August was about 105 gallons per day. So I know we've got a number of, and that's based on, I think, 613 REUs. And so that's so many gallons per REU, and we're adding 48. So that's about another 8,500. So you're getting up there at about 113. And I know Kyle Evans has a plan. We've got something going on maybe down at the peer group, and then so many infills. So I think it'd be useful to get an understanding of where we are and where we're projected to go as far as capacity of the plant, because eventually there may be having to look at increasing the capacity of the system to handle certain things. So what's the cost of that and whatnot? So I just think, forward thinking that if these developments do go through, we're going to be in a position where we're going to be limited potentially to growth of the village by the sewer system. There was a note that there's some PFAS, I guess the biosolids are taken from the treatment plant, and I think for agrarian use, or you test the biosolids and then you release them, and there was PFAS concentrations were elevated in those samples. And my understanding is, and the comment was somebody went around and talked to the light manufacturing about the use of the PFAS, and I'm not sure whether in the state of Michigan it's still legal to use PFAS. Maybe we're in a period of time where you're going to, by the end of this year, it's done. I know DOD went that route, Department of Defense, a number of states have signed up, including Michigan, not to use PFAS. So I think that's a real serious issue, that if we have people here using PFAS, it shouldn't be. And it's more something that should be looked into, because that's detrimental to our system. And I don't know how you get rid of biosolids that are contaminated like that. But I'm happy we're analyzing biosolids. Okay, and I guess the other thing, I'm very happy, I think the page has been turned here. We have a lot of new members on the panel here, the board that I'm very pleased with. So I think it's good news for the community, and so I'm happy to see that.
Thank you. Anybody else? Public comment? Anyone out in Zoom land? Unmute yourself. I see Elizabeth, Betsy, she's waving her hand. Can you unmute yourself?
Yes, good morning, Elizabeth Malik, North Township. And I just, listening to Campbell McLeod, want to echo that I think that this board at this point in time is probably looking at the feasibility of plant expansion. And I don't think it should fall on this board's shoulders as far as costs. So I just remind you that whenever there is development, that is usually a cost borne by the developer. And in this case, we seem to have a lot of developers interested in increasing the plant flow, so that I don't know how you would resolve or divide that cost amongst the several possible developments, but it should not be borne by the NLTUA authority. So just wanted to remind folks that that is a typical cost for a developer. And I do think that the plant can be expanded, and looks like the 48 units would be an asset to our community. So I don't think we should necessarily impair the development to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to payment of bills. July and August.
I'll make a motion to pay the bills over $37,919.98. Correct.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and support. All in favor?
Take the roll call vote.
Okay. Roll call vote, starting with Mike.
Yay.
Yes.
No.
And yes. Clerk Treasurer's report.
So you have in your packet, we're in the process of, today's last day for due date for our sewer bills that were mailed out in July. And so you have in your packet our cash transaction report, our trial balance, and a revenue expenditure report has been provided. As you can see, our receivables still at high amount. I have a large stack of receipts to do today, and had some yesterday as well. So we're finishing up with the accounts receivable still at over 140,000. So quite a bit to go.
Does anybody have any questions for Joey? Okay, does the liaison have a report?
She does not.
Superintendent's report.
Yes, I don't have it in your packet, sorry to say, but we received 3 new pumps. This is for the 7th Street lift station and 1 backup for main lift stations, right, Justin?
Did that one arrive as well?
Yeah, there's 3 there, so.
Okay, yep.
Last Friday, also calcium nitrate, continue to pump that at an increased rate at Northport lift station. We have 4 barrels in place, we'll have to order some more. We helped Jacobs with the, I'll call it the bed testing, infiltration bed testing on the ribs 2 weeks ago. And then several just residential call-outs, which are normal type of maintenance issue, start capacitors, plug pumps, so that's all I got.
Chris, were you able to confirm that line you thought was metal that is now PVC? Were you able to confirm it's PVC?
Yes,
Great.
yep, through Fleece and Van and Rink, the design engineers on that, so all the appurtenances are cast, but all the main line is PVC and HDPE pipes. Any questions?
All right, this brings us to our first discussion, potential action item.
Jacob's operator.
Oh, sorry,
Justin.
didn't mean to cut you off, man.
So I guess I'm just gonna reiterate, we got the pumps for 7th Street, they arrived, we don't have the schedule replacement yet, but that's next. The Kaiser blowers, the aeration blowers, we got one in, that is set to install next Tuesday, a week from today. And then the monthly report you'll see by the end of this week. So,
Now we'll go to our first discussion, potential action items, This is update connection fee determination, Ross Hammersley, Thomas Greer, and Chet, were you gonna present this?
Sure. Last night, approximately 6:30,
Yeah.
some of us received an email, and it's in your packet, a draft opinion, from Mr. Hammersley.
Actually, I don't think it went to all board members.
No, it's just a some, I think it went to,
It just,
but it's in your packet there. It's at the bottom.
okay,
Yeah, and we'll get it out to everyone, but it came in last night around 6:30. And he also sent it to Mr. Gear for his review now. And so we just got it last night. It's about 10 pages long. It's pretty complicated. I just glanced at it last night. But I think you should have time to look at it. And hopefully Mr. Gear will agree with Mr. Hammersley's opinion and we'll sign off on it. Because it's last month's meeting, you asked for both attorneys to review it. So that's in the process. So we gave Mr. Hammersley all the background data information. And he issued this last night and sent it out to Mr. Greer for his review also. And we will email this to everyone, including all members of the village council.
so yeah, so basically, just to clarify, this is a draft memorandum. It has not been reviewed by the NLTUA's lawyer yet, and it will be. So this is basically just an advisory opinion. What it kind of says is that the village council, Northport Village Council, does have the authority to negotiate fees and connection rates for proposed development, large-scale developments. So it would not be up to the NLTUA and certainly not up to the township. So that's his opinion. Before, until the NLTUA attorney reviews it, just take it with a grain of salt. It's just one particular. Nothing binding.
So in essence, he's saying the township has the right to make the same decisions.
If development was in the township, yeah, then the village couldn't interfere with that. So that
So why do we have an NLTUA? I know it's not your opinion, it's his opinion.
yeah, you got to read it. I barely had time. I saw it this morning.
Okay.
I just skimmed it. It is pretty complicated, and there's some overlapping stuff. I have a law degree, and this was hard for me to read. So I got to read it 2 or 3 more times to see what it says, and then it needs to be reviewed by our attorney as well. So that's what's going on for people in public. All right, so go ahead.
Yeah, I spoke with Thomas Greer at 9:10 this morning. As of 9:10 this morning, Thomas Greer has had no contact with Mr. Hammersley.
Well, that's not accurate, because I was copied on an email that Mr. Hammerstein sent to Mr. Greer. What a copy of this.
I talked,
Asking for his opinion. It was sent out yesterday.
Mr. Chairman, may I have the floor?
Yes, please.
I talked with Thomas Greer at 9:10 this morning. Thomas Greer, our attorney, told me that he has had no contact with Ross Hammersley regarding this matter. That in his inbox this morning, for the first time, evidently this memo was in his inbox. He had had no opportunity to look at it. Let's do a what-if scenario. Let's pretend that there's 7 acres in the village. Let's pretend that there's a similar 7 acres in the township. According to what I understand that you have characterized from Mr. Hammersley's opinion, which I had not read, that would mean that it would be the township's responsibility to decide what accommodation, if any, was made to the piece of property that was in the township. And it would be the village's responsibility to decide what accommodation, if any, would occur in the village. It is not uncommon for a developer to come in and purchase 2 pieces of property, or at least take an option on 2 pieces of property. If Mr. Hammersley's opinion is correct, that would put the developer in the position of being able to negotiate with the township and negotiate with the village in order to obtain the most favorable deal. In other words, there could be wheeling and dealing. It seems to me that this authority, which is required by law, exists for the very purpose of making sure that that kind of wheeling and dealing cannot occur. Therefore, I think we ought to look with a great deal of skepticism at Mr. Hammersley's opinion. Thank you.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm trying to say, is that until our attorney looks this over, I wouldn't put any stock in it, and we're nowhere near taking action on this. Also, I have been looking into this stuff a little bit, and I've talked to an attorney who specializes in affordable housing, and before even negotiations can begin, we're going to need a covenant and a buyback, so that it's enforceable, that it remains affordable housing, and as soon as it, according to certain standards, which will be set out in the covenant, in the contract. And so if that's not followed, the developer would then have to pay back all the discounts that he got. So there would be, that's the beginning. That's, you start there and then you start negotiating. This is what I've been told. So that's got to happen first. And we're a long way from that, as far as I can tell. We may not a real long way, but that's going to have to be procured, and that covenant's going to have to be ironed out before we can even talk about any kind of a discount for a connection fee. Because you can't just give a giveaway and with no guarantees that it's going to be followed. So that's where we start. And I can get more information on that. I can get sample contracts, covenants, because that's what this guy does. He's related to me. It's my niece's husband. He's like, yeah, man, send whatever you want. I just haven't gotten there yet. It's summer. I'm still trying to keep up with my work, and Chris is busy too. So we're going to get to this in the fall. But for now, take this for what it's worth.
Well, Mr. Chairman, just another kind of process statement for all 4 of us, and Chris when he's here. I mean, we asked for this, for the 2 lawyers to talk at the last meeting. So we get this 29 days and 23 hours after we had asked for the request, so the developer's waiting for our response.
I,
The community's waiting for our response. I'm not asking you to answer, I'm just more of a statement.
yeah,
We just have to act with a more sense of urgency to make these things happen. Not that we're gonna rush anything, but I think it should be simple to get 2 lawyers
this
within
is,
30 days.
Time sensitive.
yeah, this is how, for like the 4 years we've had Russ, he's a great attorney. I have nothing but the fondest respect for him, but he does this. He gets stuff like minutes before meetings. He's a very busy guy. At least he got it before this meeting, but now, yeah, it's gonna be, until we have another meeting. But there's other things that we have to discuss, such as, we're just trying to figure out who has the authority to negotiate, should negotiations happen. We don't even know if that's gonna happen yet.
Right.
But, other things have to be in place. So, yeah, it is. It's kind of muddy. It's just not clear, but we are working on clearing it up.
One further point of clarification. This memo is advice to the village. It is not advice to us.
That's correct.
Just one more point quickly. I apologize for cutting you off. But I thought the agreement was that we were going to have Mr. Hammersley draft opinion, send it to Mr. Gear for his review, and then hopefully he would agree with it, so that's the process we're using.
And he may suggest changes.
Yeah, and it's a very complicated process because Mr. Hammersley did ask for a lot of documentations. And I personally drove a stack of documents this thick that he can review from all of the past
All
4
of the
years.
agreements.
Yeah, so it's a very complex issue, and you definitely want the right.
Well, and there's also the possibility that Mr. Greer will come up with a completely different conclusion.
Could be.
And so, we're ways away. We have to have our own representation. So anyway, that's where it stands. I don't think we have an update on the status of the intergovernmental agreement.
No,
That hasn't been worked on. You want anything you want to talk about there? Other than we,
So I'm kind of curious of this. I guess the in question is that is Ross Hammersley talking with Tom Greer?
He's supposed to be.
Okay.
I mean, it's.
You're saying you talked to him?
well,
As of 9:10 this morning, there has been no contact. There's been no conversation between Mr. Hammersley and Mr. Greer. All that Mr. Greer has at this time is this opinion that was in his email this morning and that he had not had an opportunity to look at or read.
And we have continued, if I may.
Yeah, go.
In my emails to Mr. Hammersley, on behalf of the village, we've continued to include, because there's a list, we've been keeping him very busy with our manager, hiring, and many other things, and that has been included in that we need to have this completed. And in fact, I think there was a follow-up email yesterday possibly, so.
Right, and just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean, and it's not going to. I mean, the idea is they will confer. It just hasn't, it's summer, it hasn't happened yet, and people
well,
are
I
busy.
think part of the process was that Mr. Hammersley would provide his legal opinion, give it
Right.
to Mr. Gear for his review.
Mhm.
And so they're working independently of each other. Now that Mr. Gear has Mr. Hammersley's opinion, he can review it and say whether he agrees with it, whether he wants to modify it, or whether he disagrees with it. So we should know that shortly.
And we should be open to having a special meeting.
We may.
So we don't have to wait another 30 days.
I'm, like I said, I'm just sitting here,
Yeah, I
sitting in
know.
for Chris, and with,
I know.
I had no idea I was gonna be running this meeting so far.
No, it's not directed to you, just in general comment.
Yeah. Okay, do we have anything on the Woolsey Lakes Road sewer main extension?
No, I do not.
Nothing new, okay.
Nothing new on that one.
And that's gonna require a legal opinion as well. I mean, a lot of this is just being held up by the lawyers. Cleaning of pressurized main.
I'm sorry,
Hold on.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
If I may, we did receive a invoice yesterday for the connection on Northport Point Road.
Mhm.
Okay.
So there was, a property in the sewer assessment district that didn't have the line run up to it for Mr. Moeller. We did receive that invoice here in this office to the NLTUA. It was just under $10,000.
So we're paying that, or I thought the township was gonna pay that?
And that is, in prior meetings, it was probably a year ago, the township did agree to pay for that.
Okay, so that is gonna go
Yeah,
downhill.
but the invoice gotta come here first before.
Okay, I see. Okay, cool.
Okay, I will get you a copy. Is that, how would you like this to proceed with
You can
this?
slow walk it if you want.
I can slow walk it.
You can get a Pony Express, say, no, I can take it from you today or we'll pick it up tomorrow.
Okay,
According to your purchasing policy, the procedure should be, your check should be written to the authority and the authority should pay the bill.
so copies, so.
We're good for it. We know where we're good.
All right, good on that? Before I jump, cleaning of the pressurized main, this is what was talked about a little bit. Chris,
Yes,
the good news?
the good news is, the fact that it is not ductile iron and we feel it's in good shape. We don't have the pumpage reports on that, what was drawn, and, I don't know if Mark was taking care of that, so but as it stands right now, I think we've got good flow and no obstructions. I think we're in good shape. And that's three different firms, the engineering firm itself, Lisa Vanderbrink. Sorry, I looked right at you with confidence. And everybody feels that should not be impaired flow. So we'll have some more details next go around. So
Just so people remember that was gonna be the 150, maybe thousand, yeah, that we're now not gonna have to spend or borrow.
yes,
So that's good news. The Fairway View project, go ahead.
I have some questions. This is pretty confusing, because we did have a 6-page detailed report from Jacob that indicated that the main was ductile iron, and also said that it was pretty seriously behind the maintenance. And now, and that definitely needed to be cleaned and possibly should have been cleaned 7 years ago. And now it turns out, although we don't have a written report and verification on that, that is not the case. And while I agree in a way that's good news, but in a way it's really bad news, because it means that there is considerable confusion as to what that main is. And so one thing that would interest me would be to know, and I assume in the original design, that there were materials specified in the material design. And I'm wondering if that material design, original specification, whether or not the type of pipe that we currently believe to be in there was specified. And two, in the as-bills, which I assume there are, whether there was any decision made to change the original specification and that actually something was substituted. It seems to me both those things should exist. And if they did, it begs the question, why was there the confusion as to what kind of pipe it is? And I would really be interested, one, I'm wondering whether we've reached the conclusion that we don't need to clean the pipe at all, and we don't even need to look to see what's in there. And if that is the conclusion, I really would like to hear from Jacobs on that and to make sure that Jacobs agrees with that conclusion.
so
Do you want to speak to that?
Sure.
Yeah.
So everything that we propose to you guys is obviously a recommendation. Your decision is the end all be all. What we know from serving other facilities is that generally about a 5-year time span before you want to check the integrity of your pipes. What we're saying is it's been since the implementation of this treatment facility that nothing's been televised. So I can't say with complete certainty what shape that pipe is without seeing it. So what we recommend is to get an eye on it. Now, what you guys decide to do is, again, totally in your court. But it's our job to provide you all the options, possibilities, anything that could potentially happen. Just to serve you the best that we can. So that's where that comes from, is the lack of visual confirmation that that pipe is still what you need it to be, the condition you need it to be.
So without respect to what it's made of, it would still be your recommendation that we at least take a look at it.
I do not think that that's something that should be ignored for long.
Thank you.
Did you guys say at the last meeting, though, you would have a difficult time doing it because of the terms? So you couldn't, I'm trying to figure out, put those two together, where you guys didn't think you could do it, you're saying we should do it.
What they're referring to, and Andrew Waldron was the one that was here prior, he's the guy that would oversee that, he's our maintenance supervisor. I kind of lost my train of thought.
It's difficult to access. The biggest thing is there's not a port to get into. You have to go in through a ARV valve, and to get in is one thing. To track that camera back out is the big concern.
Right.
For the contractor.
So it's the way that it was set up initially doesn't give us the accessibility for these types of procedures that we implement to check integrity.
So how do we do it then?
We'd have to make some modifications for that. That being said, the, like I say, design engineer and contractor that specializes in the cleaning and camera work feel that the system, we're back to this suggestion every 5 years that it would be cleaned or televised. They feel that it's not 100% necessary, as Justin said. I mean, it's a suggestion, but not necessary. But to access it would take some doing, and then we'd have to look at formulating a plan and what those access points would be. Generally, they can run about 1,000 foot max. 700 feet would be optimal. Put a camera in at each length of that. So I think you got a total of 200 feet. Well, again, a lot of that pipe is HDPE, which has no access to it, opposed to the C900, which is the heavier 8-inch that the ARV valves are on. This is all language. The HDPE pipe is it's all smooth bore, but that has all been bored into the plant, from West Street to the plant, that lasts thousands of feet. Can it be done? Yeah. Does it need to be done? I guess it's to be determined. And I think really that is going to come from looking at the trending of that pump report. Are we pulling more hertz? Those pumps working harder to pull the same flow rate? And that's something I'm sorry to say I don't have in front of me.
So this isn't a settled.
It's not 100%, but I mean, somewhere out there that this system got out that it was a ductile iron system. We only know we had one section that we, obviously addressed on North Shore, the gravity system. But on the force main to the plant, there is no ductile except for the valves, apparatus that go with that. That was the big question, is that if it was ductile iron, they were afraid it could possibly be compromised. Because what we saw with the S2 gas on North Shore, well, that's a whole different system. This pipe that runs from the main lift station to the plant, Justin maybe elaborate on it, but that is always under pressure. Through the check valves, that remains fluid. When I say fluid, there's no chance, no trapped gas, S2 gas, which is corrosive. Henceforth, the ARV valves, air release valves. Okay. So is that all making sense to everybody?
Yeah.
So, that's what we know. So again, I guess we gotta go back and see, look at the trending of that, the pumpage.
Given that our operator gave us a written report with specific recommendations, and now we have additional information, not asking for a lot, but I think it would be important to have at least a one-pager from the operator recommending, making their assessment of what their current recommendation is, given the new information that we have available. Before we debate and make any decision about how to proceed, I just, for the record, I think it's important that the operator be on the record.
Did Munt,
Much love.
did they weigh in on this at all?
Yeah, they did, and they brought another specialist from Environmental Services, I believe it is, fellow that had extensive experience with that. And they felt, and again, they're a company that specializes in camera and cleaning, as they did the lining. They felt that, that it didn't warrant immediate, being addressed immediately, I guess is the best way to put it. Being the system is, 14 years old, and PVC and HDPE pipe. Now, again, to hold them to that, that's their opinion.
Right.
And,
Yeah,
I'm just giving it back, so, look at somebody else, but, maybe going forward with the camera work is still an option. But it's gonna take, some, potential, just to modify those ARVs, access ports to that line. So that's something we can, once again, talk to them about, put it out there.
So what would be next steps for this board? I mean, should we authorize you to go ahead and look into that, or, I mean?
Start contacting, and again, I think we need to talk, Justin, I think we need to talk with your engineers too, and, get their opinion.
Yeah.
I'm just dirty boot guy. So.
Yeah, no, Rick makes a good point, that maybe this, wasn't, you gotta be more thorough.
Yep. Yeah, Kim was all good.
Just to build on Rick's point earlier, and it's more of a rhetorical statement than a question, but so it's 3,500 feet, we thought initially it was metal, right? And so the PVC, which is great news for everybody, right? But again, the only thing that's here today, do we know if we got charged for metal or for PVC?
No, in the specs, it is PVC.
Oh, it is?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
perfect.
So I don't know whether there was some disconnect here. But
What it is in the specs, it's PVC.
what I can find on the as-bills and on the sheets, so I don't know where we got this disconnect from.
Got it.
I'm not gonna point my fingers.
No, that helps a lot. Thanks.
So.
All right,
Thanks, Bill.
are we good with that?
So,
Okay, the Fairway View project sewer capacity study is in the packet. I read it. It's mostly Greek to me. Does somebody want to talk about this?
a representative
Yeah.
from Gauguin Zubik.
Yeah, well, you're welcome to take.
Sure, we were asked to kind of look at what might be expected to be generated from type of buildings that are proposed for this project. So what I did is I went and got data from the development in Grand Traverse County, it's in Garfield Township, the Carson Square Apartments there. Their project was developed with Mishta and Goodwill Industries. It serves that type of population, that need-based housing type. So we looked at that, and then I looked at a apartment complex in Bear Creek Township, just outside of Petoskey, so more of a residential apartment community, kind of get a feel for two different types of communities. So, got data. We had a year of data from Grand Traverse County provided, and then used 2 years of data from Petoskey and just kind of came up with an average flow based on a 1-bedroom apartment or a 2-bedroom apartment. We projected that out based on what the unit mix is for the proposed buildings. We're at 75 gallons per day for a 1-bedroom or studio apartment, and 100 gallons per day for a 2-bedroom. Typically when we're looking at this type of scenario with real data, we use a factor of safety of at least 125%, or so. I think we met that, maybe a little higher in one of them. So that was just to kind of give you guys an idea of what kind of flows might be coming from this development. I think we're at about 4,300 gallons per day at a total build out for all 3 buildings. I'm not familiar with what the actual capacity of the plant is.
That's really, has anybody looked at this, or who do we show it to see what, if this fits in our capacity, how much it'll take? Yeah, I'm looking at you.
I talked to Justin, I mean, what we're permitted right now with this campus, we're at 132.
132.
Yeah, the 24-hour period. So, again, at this point, the capacity is there.
That's the average daily flow, yes. The max daily flow will be double that.
So, again, it goes back to permitting. It's not like we have to add another room. Sorry, to interrupt.
No, I think, well, that's kind of in a nutshell, what we did, I guess. Any other questions or?
I just thought it was really helpful. I think this would be helpful for your discussion when you're going to be deciding on the connection fees, because it does certainly relate to the RU schedule currently as far as connections and usage.
Mhm.
And so it'll be helpful if the board members look at this and then read the rules and regs that lay out how it's determined.
Right. I haven't actually gotten the calculator out, but.
Did you have the calculator out?
No, I didn't yet.
No, I
I'm
did.
gonna need to,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah,
Well,
and we can compare notes.
yeah, let's.
So
compare notes.
I won't.
I'd rather have somebody who knows, I can do the calculations myself, but I'm not an engineer, and,
And I thought it was really helpful, the data that was provided.
Yeah.
Showed the supporting documents, so.
No, it's a nice
Yeah.
report. It's very
Yeah, very
helpful.
well.
Very thorough.
So it's within capacity, but do you have any idea, like, how close that's gonna bring us to our maximum? Like, it takes us up, to 80 or 90, or where would we be if theoretically this was built? How much more capacity would we have left? So it was mentioned in public comment, there are other projects in the pipeline. Any
Right.
idea? Yeah,
So 132 is the average daily flow. We're saying
if they added,
100 currently plus.
Just over 4.
You're saying 100,000, so we're 4,300, so,
oh,
you
Yeah,
know,
you will.
so that's like 5%.
yeah, small percentage.
It is a small percentage. Let's get it. Okay, cool. Anybody else have any comments or questions at this point? All right. Establish term limits for board members Cross, Harper, and Holton. And do we have a?
I didn't see, you're able to write up what I said.
Yeah, it's in, I think it's in the
Oh,
packet.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that you wanted your actual email included in that, so.
Well, it wouldn't be an email, I thought somebody could put it in resolution.
Yeah.
Like, you have it?
There is a resolution in the packet.
Oh, that's a resolution
Oh, that's a
for
different
amending the art, that's different.
What is this?
That is a resolution that was adopted by this board and the village council on many of the articles of incorporation. There was just some information out there that the board had requested, and said, oh, well, we'd like to see that from prior discussions.
Okay.
And so this was, that's just from 2020, when we had adopted that.
It's not so much will it's establishing term limits, it's just abiding by the term limits. And
Right.
so that when you two guys took office, it's specified in minutes.
No, I saw you put, I saw your email.
I was not included
Oops.
Okay.
All right.
Well, I gave it first, I didn't know, but I didn't know what the protocol was, go to the chairman and then.
Yeah,
I didn't want to treat you like. a
it would have been good
secretary.
to vote on that today, just to get it done.
Well, there's no reason why we can't vote on it today. I
I don't know if you have to do it by resolution, it could be motions, and it's standard 2 years, reappointment.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it looked
okay.
like it was just according to the rules,
Mhm.
so,
But it had specific dates and your start dates and your end
Right.
dates, and then it addressed Chris's, the village, it appears the village needs to reappoint Chris, because his term is expired.
Oh.
Which I think he's confirmed, right? Yeah. So the 2-year thing wasn't being abided by, again, not being a technocrat.
no, it was, yeah, there was some chaos for a minute.
Well, we mentioned last time, we mentioned we just gotta get back to regular order, following the bylaws.
So Rick, do you have a suggestion on what we should do today?
Yeah, I do, if I can have a minute to find it.
Yep.
The issue here is just to clean up, just to start to move to be consistent with our articles of incorporation. We don't need to do it all at once, but this would be a pretty easy step forward. I think the proper way that this should be done is when either the village or the township is approving members to the authority. In their motion of approval, they should approve the term of office as opposed to just the general term. But in the meantime, to get things going, and the issue on Mike, I think it's really helpful to the clerk that if motions that are fairly elaborate, in other words, have more than one sentence, that it is a courtesy to be able to provide the clerk and the other members of the board with a copy of the proposed motion, so that when she goes to do her minutes, she doesn't have to have scribed it all down or go back and listen to the tape, that she can have a written version. But, I mean, I'll make an attempt. I move that the terms of office for Will Harper and Rick Cross be set from the period of May 31st of June 30th, 2023 to May 21st, 2025. I further move that the authority request the village of Northport to establish a term for Chris Holton. And further request that both the township and the village of Northport, in making any future appointments to the board, establish a term of office along with the approval of the appointment.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there support?
I'll second it.
Want to have any discussion on it, or are we ready to vote?
I can listen to the video.
I mean, in the future, I'd give you a written copy.
It's fine, yeah.
No, that's fine. We don't need a roll call. Just all in favor, or do you want to do a question?
No, just, I'm sorry to interrupt, Joni, fire chief is, or correspondent, he cannot get in,
He's in.
he's in.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think he may have been sitting there for a minute or two.
sorry for the disruption, he's, yeah.
All right, so all in favor?
Aye.
And Joey, I apologize, I did send it to Chris, thinking he'd send it to you, I didn't know the chain of command. So
Well,
I thought he would send it to you.
yeah, and he's busy.
Yeah. But it's what Rick just said pretty much is what in my email said.
Yeah, that covers it. I think Rick, you did a good job. Yeah. Okay, update from grant writer Jennifer Graham.
Hi, that would be me. Thank you, Jennifer with Gordy Frazier. And I want to say last time we met, it was probably March with some, as a subcommittee. And since that point, initially we had presented just some high level grant, but realistically loan with the hope that we capture grant money as far to be utilized to pursue some plant upgrades for this authority. And so I kind of provided you guys a couple options, and then we just kind of had some brief discussion about it. Since then, our operator in our office went and met with Jacobs. This was about the end of April. And just to go through, get a tour of the facility and go through and identify what are the true priorities related to the plant. Because originally, as you guys recall, obviously Jacobs maintains an asset management plan, as well as Fleece and Vandenbrink, the original designer of the facility, had provided an asset management plan. So kind of marrying those two up, and then realistically, going through and identifying from a high priority to a medium to a low priority to help us for financing, because realistically, we're going to look to finance, or you're going to look to finance high and perhaps moderate priority projects, where the low ones are, R&R items, things like that. So we did go through and update that. We also reached out to USDA just to kind of firm up, because there was question as far as your median household income, because you guys are a blended authority, and kind of nail that down. And unfortunately, the 2020 census has thus come out and reflecting a higher median household income for this community. There is ability to go through and do a community survey. And so I discussed that with Blake Smith, and realistically, it was his recommendation. I mean, it's a lot of work to go through a community survey, and he was not optimistic that it was going to prove the results that we were looking for. You might see a 10,000 reduction from that median household income, but realistically, it still puts you guys within market rate, which right now is about 3 3/4 for interest. And I do kind of have a handout that just kind of updates some of this that I probably didn't bring in enough, but hopefully you guys can share that. But basically, we're still looking at the 2 plausible funding opportunities with the USDA, and the other one being Eagle Clean Water State Revolving Fund. And with that, we've had the opportunity to go through and look at the scoring, because a bunch of applications were due. Originally, notice of intent was to be submitted for last year for this next round of funding, and all those applicants that have recently put in, they've just released all their scoring rubrics. So we're kind of seeing where the trends are of scoring. It helped guide me, at least for you guys, knowing your priority projects, realistically what we're looking for a score and being within fundable range. So I do have some of that financial information too, but I think the next big piece of decision making, I kind of identified some steps, is Dawn Lund is sitting here in the audience today with Utility Financial Solutions. I always say UFS. And so she, as a rate consultant, is able to take a look at the projects and realistically give you guys a capture, depending on the scope, the cost of the projects, what impact it's going to have on your user rates. So that's going to be important decision making for you guys. But also with that, before I have her speak, right now for timelines for us, what I would recommend to you guys is MDARD, which is the Michigan Department of Ag. They have grant opportunities that we've applied for. They're usually due in November to help pay for these project plans that have to be submitted, which is the initial reports to apply either USDA or Eagle. Both of them have preliminary engineering reports. That's a funding avenue that pays for those reports through a grant. And they're due November. We usually find out in March. The other timeline to keep in mind, which is identified on that little PowerPoint, is Eagle's Clean Water. Their notice of intent is due in November. And so that's just putting in your first ask, that just as it sounds, notice of intent, and then ultimately they're looking for that report that I just referenced to be submitted by, their timeline's kind of flexible, but right now June 1st of 2024 is kind of a timeline for due dates. But I think the big thing for you guys as a group to decide is, now that I've nailed down the priorities for these projects, how much realistically are you looking for impact on your customers, and that's where Dawn can kind of come in and help as that supplement piece to work with me on, and ultimately you guys.
Yeah, that was step one. Thank you so much. And just a reminder, I'm Dawn Lund, Vice President of Utility Financial Solutions, and you guys have approved step one, a financial projection to look at grant funding and to look at projects to see how it affects ratepayers. We have the information request that we need from you guys submitted, and as soon as we get data, we'll be able to roll on that and get that going. So we're eager to work on the project, and you know, if you guys have any questions throughout this process, just make sure and give me a shout. Thank you.
Are you getting the cooperation you need as far as getting the data? You said you submitted everything, is it starting to flow to you? Or?
Well, so one of the helpful things, like coming here today, it sounds like you have some of the financial information I need in your packet. So I'll be able to now get online and hopefully gather some of that data. So yeah, I do need some specific data, and I'm waiting for that data, and as soon as I get that, I'll be able to move forward.
Do you have a timeline that you need in order to get to the grant writer?
Well, if it's not until June of 2024, when would you have to submit?
Because there's one for November, right?
That's just the notice of intent. So basically, we're putting in saying, hey, we're gonna ask for $30 million. That doesn't mean that, you know, it's just
Right.
a wish list.
You don't provide any much backup?
No,
Okay.
it's a one pager that you guys, we don't even have need a board resolution for
So
it.
it's like a kid's Christmas list.
Yeah, Sears catalog, exactly. So, you know, so that's my intent, just to automatically do that for you guys on your behalf, just so that we're in the queue. But I do mention the MDARD grant because that is one that typically is due in November, and will provide some level of effort. I've submitted for a lot of other communities in the past to help fund that engineering report, so that's a good resource. So I'll probably be reaching out, Rick, you've been kind of the contact that I've talked to, and maybe that's a decision for this board if that's something you guys want to pursue. As far as that grant application, there's a little bit of level of effort that we have to do. But to answer your question, Dawn, realistically, to finalize the numbers, we would probably be looking sometime in March to give me time.
In connection with that, because you're here talking about grants, but I kind of highly recommend we look at this as soon as possible. I'm hearing a lot of things today, right? I'm hearing connection fees, I'm hearing new developments. There's a lot of stuff, it sounds like, that's going on, and if we can get the financial projection started, it's really gonna help your decision-making process on all these things.
Can you be more specific on as soon as possible? I mean, because I think people work well on your dates versus, you know, I'm hearing like, I thought it was November, and then I'm hearing it won't be until June of 24, now I'm hearing as soon as possible. So if you can just help us with it, we just need to hold people accountable with dates.
Yeah, so, I mean, typically when information request is in, I usually get data back within a week or two. Usually the things that I initially ask for are readily available, like financial statements, trial balances, those types of things. So it sounds like I can go into the minutes and see what I can find there. But I have, you know, submitted information.
If I can speak, because I'm the one who received the request,
Okay.
so if that's okay, Dawn.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did receive your request at the beginning of August. And it's been very busy, as everyone has stated, and so I understand how important this is to the village. It's not something we did speak to Cindy Edmondson on the phone. I do know that. I've taken a look at the list. I am under some time crunches. My priority is the village and making sure my minutes and my financial reports are set there. But I have looked at the list, and some of those items I have to reach out to the township to gather. So, and so it's not that it can't be accomplished. It's just I am here by myself. So,
And I can look up the minutes too. The financial reports that you give to the board, are those?
It just states that I give them, but I do have them here, so I can share them with you, yeah.
Yeah, but those will probably be posted. I mean, I can do that background work.
Yeah, we can work together.
Yeah.
I'm happy to. I mean, I know the importance of getting the data. It's just that we are a small village here, and I'm doing the best I can.
No, and I definitely, it's basically not push this back on you, but you specifically asked, you know, it's, what is your timeline? I can work with your timeline. I just need to get the data to work with that. So if you guys want to set a timeline, we can work backwards from there. If you say, all right, we want this by September, then I need data within the next week or two.
We're working down parallel paths because we just started before another reason, work on the study that you're working on. So is that an additional data or is it the same data?
So what will happen is the data that I need to work with to do the financial projection will feed into what Jennifer is doing.
Right.
So it's a really great timing to do what you're doing. It's going to ultimately save you money in the long run because I request the same data and we can use it dual purpose. The quicker we get it, it's just better for you. It sounds like you have a lot of stuff going on. It's going to help with those decisions. And then we can use that base data and roll into what Jennifer has prioritized for capital to feed that into there and see what kind of grant funding you can get.
Joe, is there any, on a temp labor basis, I know we're tight on skilled labor to help with those type of things. It might be a naive question, but is there something we can do over the next couple of months to give you temp help?
Oh, I mean, the village is looking at hiring, administrative assistant, and so, I've been stepping in and although some of these jobs may seem small, they all build up, so.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I will get to it, I promise you. I was hoping to do it this week,
I'm just saying, raise your hand if you need help.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Well, the best you can do is find someone to apply for these jobs.
so. Yeah, exactly.
So Mike, if you can find someone, that would be great.
No, exactly, I mean,
Yeah.
in our position, we recognize the available labor forces then, on these type of requests. Jennifer, this is really helpful. Do you think, on that summary page in the back, do you think we qualify for the civic need, at least 51% of the residents?
No.
Yeah, that's,
Because I've seen some housing studies where we are actually fairly poor.
Yeah, no, we all feel fairly poor, trust me. The unfortunate part is the demographics and the data they utilize is the census. That's their baseline. Now, where the potential for EAGLE grant funding, or they coin it differently, it's forgiveness, that's their word for grant, is associated with other parameters such as if you've got water quality parameter issues, ACO violations, and unfortunately for you guys, I mean, you don't have those either. So it really depends on what pool of money, but realistically, we're looking at, for you guys, from what I'm seeing and talking with our USDA EAGLE reps, it is going to be a loan. The nice thing in that fashion is, as you can see with the interest rates, in comparison to bond or millage, the interest rate's a lot more favorable and the terms go up to 30 or even 40 year if you go USDA route.
No, they're really fun. I mean, great information. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
I get it, how difficult it is to determine some of the financial data, and that, but is the USDA just hard and fast that it's census data and that's all the data they will accept to use?
Well, and then the other option is what I had briefly touched on, is doing a community survey.
Right.
And you can go through that effort. There's quite a cost associated locally and a lot of staff time, which I know you guys are hard pressed for. And I can provide some additional information if it's a route you want to pursue. But realistically, according to our local rep, he was not, from his experience doing this for 20 years, he's not optimistic you're going to see the reduction anticipated.
Everybody likes to be the strangest community that exists, but we really are. Leelanau County now has been determined to be the highest compensated, average family income is the highest in the state of Michigan, more than Bloomfield Hills or Troy. However, we also have extensive data through studies that Ty Wessel has done and others at the county through a study called Looking at Alice.
Yeah,
And that what we determine, although, averages are deceiving because the high end really raises the level of the low end, and we have billionaires living in our, literally billionaires living in our community. What we know, particularly those of us who have been associated with schools in the past, is that we have a high level of poverty in our county. And so we have extensive data on students that are receiving free and reduced lunch. We have extensive data that has been done by groups of people who have spent thousands of hours trying to provide grants for daycare and the support of daycare, and have been looking at young families to determine what their level of poverty is. And the results of those studies are really sad and shocking. So I'm wondering if it might not be as difficult as you,
yeah, I don't want to discourage you. So to put it in perspective, so right now you're at what's considered market. Looking at your median household incomes, realistically, with the township and the village together, we're looking at 62,000 for a median household income, is what we've seen from the 2020 census data and the spreadsheets that USDA provides. For you to get to poverty level, which is the lowest interest rate USDA offers, which right now is at 2.25%, you have to be at 35,000. So you guys as the authority here have to decide, do you think you could do enough community survey to lower yourself almost 30 grand?
the answer to that is no.
No, yeah,
And if
that's what you're trying to achieve. Now, otherwise,
but that what you're saying is they won't look at it any other way.
correct. Yeah, that's their mechanism.
Okay. Okay, then
I'm sorry, what?
That helps.
Yeah.
No, yes, but no.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
I'm sorry.
Well,
And I have done a community survey, Village of Ellsworth, I don't know if any of you are familiar, they were in a very similar demographics. Now driving through there, it was a little bit different environment situation, and you could feel
no
it.
community survey in the world's gonna get us to 37,000.
Right, so I wanted, that's, I guess, to help you guys make that determination. That would put you in poverty. Otherwise, you may have to get down to what they consider intermediate, but you're talking 0.5% interest to spend, anywhere from 20 to 30 grand on a survey to save 0.5% interest. So people mostly do it to get to poverty level.
Right. Yeah. Right, I get that. Okay, I have one other issue. I gotta explain it. So, Chris McCann has this great expression that the utility authority is like an automobile, and the only difference is we don't get to trade it in. It has to last forever. So the real question about that, though, is it seems easy on its face, but there's a guy in town that is probably one of the best car restorers in the United States. And so the question is that type of person the right person to be maintaining our utility system? In other words, is what we really want to do, create it and make it to be exactly what it was when we built it 15 years ago? Or the opposite is, do we know that the system's going to have to evolve and change over time? I mean, if it was a car, most people that have their cars restored keep them in the garage and they bring them out on the 4th of July and drive them around in their toys, because they don't have heated seats, they don't have seat belts, they don't have adaptive cruise control, and they got all the things that everyone demands right now in an automobile. So are there any, and my primary concern with this is that we're going to have to change over the years, and I'm not an engineer and all of that stuff. I'm a botanist. But are we going to have to change over the years in a way that our system is going to have to adapt and evolve? And that will, of course, cost money, more money than it would be just to restore it, to maintain it in its original state. One of the big issues, I think, as we move forward, I obviously think we can't restore it, we have to let it evolve. And as it evolves, one of the most important things that I think we should be concerned about is whether or not we're going to be able to maintain our water quality. And what impact any expansion, and what impact any changes need to be made to improve and maintain the high quality of our water quality. In other words, that our plant is doing the job that it's intended to do. Is there anybody out there that is either loaning or providing money that recognizes that change that utility authorities need to be making over time, that would be willing to participate in providing help?
I know, I mean, with Eagle, with their clean water, they have a category related to green infrastructure is one. Bob, I don't know if you can think of anything off the top of your head either. Sure. I know. I think the biggest thing, I mean, and it was very enlightening when our operator met with Jacobs, I mean, there are some opportunities to make some modifications. And in the long run, with those modifications, I believe it's going to present efficiencies in staffing, electricity costs. I mean, inherently, you're making these modifications to make the plant run better and to improve the challenges you guys have right now. You know, some of them with like your mixing system, that was a discussion. The addition of a clarifier, some changes to the ferric, those are all, you know, inherently some modifications that are going to make Jacob's job easier, which you know, definitely are going to have some cost savings too. So yes, in answer to your question, where the thought is not rehabbing it in its existing status, but actually making it better and evolve. That is the thought process with all these capital projects.
What about expansion? Because it is my understanding there are certain things at the plant itself. The plant could be significantly expanded. I mean, I believe there's a pond that's not used that could be put into use. And so the capacity of the plant could be expanded, and whether we like it or not, I don't like it. This community is going to grow. And there are going to be considerable places where we might really think that it's to the advantage of the community to expand this utility. In other words, extend it. There are areas in the township, for example, that probably could be quite easily accessed and access the utility authority that could be places where there could be potential additional projects. Is there anyone that is out there that's sympathetic to communities that have to grow in order to maintain? And I keep focusing on water quality because for the politics reason of it, that everyone's all concerned about water quality.
It's a catch-22. Unfortunately, what we see with the grants anyway, you get them when you already have an existing water quality issue. And it almost undermines us as operators and, you know, authorities, townships, villages who have municipal systems, because we strive to maintain that high standard, and it almost seems like they only provide grants to those that don't. That's what we see, in all honesty, and you know, I think any of us here can agree to that. Now, USDA does provide extra points with your application for the fact that you're looking to add customers, so that gives you points because each one of them are scoring. And those points count towards potential for grant. And how their grant works is basically they're going to look, and that's where it's instrumental to have Dawn involved, is looking at your user rates, and then they have a defined threshold for this community. This is what this community, as the standard customer, can afford. Let's say it's $50. Anything over the 50, that's where the grant will come in and cover that excess. when you're proposing capital improvement project. We just don't know that number right now because we need to start doing the financial analyses. But as far as the plant growth, I mean, I agree. I mean, sitting here, it sounds like there is some opportunity for that plant to grow, and we want to account for some of those transitions also with these capital improvement projects. So I think it's going to be, again, important to include those too, because you're not going to stay stagnant.
Thank you, I appreciate that. My question to the board is, Jennifer is right that I've been the point of contact with Jennifer. Is that okay?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, I guess I'm the point of contact.
Well, you speak the language most better than I do.
Is that okay with
Grant
Jennifer?
stuff.
Well, it helps me to have a person, yeah, so thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, to close this one off real quick. So I'm looking for a specific timeline between the two of you guys, the data that you need. By the next board meeting, can we assume you'll have all the data that you need? Can you and Joni agree on?
When's the next board meeting? Is it in a month?
Month.
I will go back and do research on the minutes to see what I can gather from the minutes. All
Okay.
right, that'll take pressure off you. And again, I wasn't bringing up timeline, you had specifically asked about timeline. I'm on your timeline. So whenever you guys want to see the projection done, when I get the data, I've got staff immediately working on it. So you lay out the
Thursday would
timeline.
be nice.
Yeah.
So,
You
you know what I'm
have
saying?
timeline, but I'll do the background work now that I know some of the financials are in the minutes. I'll see what I can extract from there, and that'll help take pressure off.
Okay, we just had to have a sense of urgency on a number of these topics. That's all I'm trying to.
It would be very timely. Everything that you're talking about today, even the connection fees, is that report out there? Because I would like to actually read that to see where you're coming from on the connection fee point of view and all that stuff. That's all going to play into this
Yeah,
financial
exactly.
projection. And so I'm just assuming it'll be in the minutes. I'll research those and.
As a board, we
We
have.
have a minute after the meeting too, I can send you with some things.
Okay, perfect.
Thanks.
All right, are we good on that?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Thanks, Jen. Okay, option for improving internal controls.
Yeah, there was an email that was circulated, started with Rick, went to Joni and Cindy, and then came back to Rick, and went to all of us. We were copied during the process. And I sent something to Chris, obviously it didn't go to Joni, about a resolution, but and I don't have the words in front of me because I'm operating off two different systems, but it basically comes down to being consistent with our auditor's report and some other observations that why can't we just have two bank accounts, one's for account receivables and one's for account payables. I don't mean to simplify it that much, but it is pretty simple request, and it puts us in compliance, it's good governance. I think, Rick, since you're the author of the initial bill, or the initial resolution or suggestion, you know, follow up. I mean, I don't have it in front of me, but it's, we can easily put it to words.
I don't feel that it would be productive for us to enter into a discussion on that without the chairman of the board here. I've had extensive discussions with him, and he's not here. And I would suggest just tabling this whole issue until
Yeah, I'm fine with tabling it.
Okay.
So we can take a closer look, or we have Chris there, maybe it can be worked out.
Okay.
Okay, date and time of annual meeting. I know we didn't have one this year, and we are required to. Who asked for this on the agenda?
I did.
Okay, so let's let you speak.
Well, I think we have a resolution here from 2020 about annual meetings. The fact is that we were supposed to have had one last April and we didn't. And so the question is, are we just going to forego an annual meeting this year where we have some very important duties, like naming a chair, naming a treasurer, naming a lot of other functions.
Vice chair.
Vice chair. Or are we going to just say, okay, let's hope we pull ourselves up by the bootstraps, and just wait until April of 2024 and then just have skipped an annual meeting this year.
My suggestion would be just to make the next board meeting in September, a month from now, the substitute annual meeting, and where we can take care of all that. And we will post it as such that this will be the, postponed annual meeting.
The problem with that is, first of all, is my understanding that Mike's not gonna be here this meeting. And the second thing is, and I know I'm always the guy that raises the technical issues that everyone wants to hold their nose, but we don't have the authority to establish when our annual meeting is. The annual meeting is established, there would have to be, if you look at the articles of incorporation, you'll see that it's been amended 2 or 3 times in order to be able to change when the annual meeting occurs. And in order to amend our articles of incorporation, both the township and the village have to agree to the amendment. So if we're to have an annual meeting, both the township and the village are somehow on it, to say for something to the effect to a one-time exception for the 23-24 fiscal year, the utility authority's annual meeting will be at X time, at X location. The other problem is I believe the current last amendment sets the annual meeting at a time we don't want to have it, the regular annual meeting. We want it on the 3rd Tuesday at 9:30 in the morning, and I can't remember, it either says it's at 7:30 at night or 10 in the morning or something. 7:30 at night. Or something like that. So in order for us to have an annual meeting, both the village and the township are going to have to act. It would be, I tried to do it before I left as supervisor of the township, and evidently there were some errors in what I had written. And when it got to the village rejected it. But what the easiest thing to do would be for someone to prepare a resolution that both the village and the township, with identical language, no spelling and grammar errors. Right. Don't ask me for anything if you don't want spelling and grammar errors, because you're going to get them. But they pass identical language, and in that language, it would do 2 things. The first, it would give us permission to have an annual meeting, and it looks like October would be the date for that annual meeting. And the second thing that it would do on a permanent basis is establish our annual meetings on April's right? On April, the 3rd Tuesday in April at 9:30 in the morning at the village. I don't know if it has to say the location, but I forget about that. But anyway, if it does, it would, we have them here, so we put this here. And so I don't think, does that all make sense? If it makes sense, we don't have the village president here, but we do have the township supervisor, and I guess all we gotta ask is, will the township supervisor and the village president get together and make sure each of their bodies pass the resolution that allows us to have a meeting in October? I don't feel like I should write a motion because I have no authority to do this.
Yeah, to feed off that, I would just suggest you have 2 village council members here. You guys come up with a draft that you're comfortable with.
We were really close. We just had, I don't know, and then it disappeared completely. We were within, it was more than a grammatical error. There was like a sentence that was wrong.
But if you guys come to a conclusion on how you think the language should read, I can't, vouch
It
for
was
the
a
other
simple
board,
fix, but we got the stuff 10 minutes before the meeting, and, it kind of spiraled out. But we can definitely, if we can fix it, this is really easy.
Okay. well, I'm not gonna say we'll pass it, but we'll vote on it
Yeah.
second Tuesday of
I'll say we'll pass it.
September. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so whatever you guys can get to us, you
Yeah.
get it to us by Friday, I'll start circulating it.
Touch Chris. Joni's got it almost done.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, the village did adopt it, it wasn't as specific as you just said with allowing us to have it in October. It was drafted by our NLTUA's legal counsel, for the NLTUA has to adopt it, then the village and township, so we all have to agree.
We do.
That's how it was done before.
Oh, okay.
Was that the draft right here that we?
Is this the draft?
No, that's the old one.
But this is the one that was adopted by the village and the NLTUA, and it was specific, one was specific for the board, this one was specific for the village council, and there was another that was specific to Leland Township.
Was it drafted or adopted?
It was adopted by the NLTUA and adopted by the village in 2020, and it was June of 2020.
Okay, does it set the meeting at 9:30?
It does, I believe it sets it for, I'll clarify. I'll clarify.
I can't
Yeah.
find it.
Okay. It was because of COVID, you know, and we wanted to have it kind of set when, and it was gonna give the opportunity to be whenever the authority decides because of COVID.
But
But,
we do want it at 9:30, right?
mhm.
All right.
If everyone agrees, I can,
Doctor it up.
Yeah, that's,
All right,
That's
I move that the, Northport Leelanau Township Utility Authority requests that the clerk modify the resolution that was adopted by the utility authority and the village on a blank day of blank 2020.
okay,
That sets the annual meeting of the utility authority on the third Tuesday in April of each fiscal year at 9:30 in the morning. And if it needs to say at the village office, at the village office, I'm not sure that it does. And further, that the utility authority establish a one-time meeting on the third Tuesday in October at 9:30 in the morning at the village office, if it needs to say that, for the purposes of accomplishing the annual meeting for the 23-24 fiscal year. And that this would be a one-time meeting. And if you're comfortable seconding and going ahead and approving that, I think it gives Joni all the authority she needs to get the job.
Seconded.
all in favor? Aye.
Hey, quick question. So the October meeting we won't have an April meeting then, right?
No. We'll have to do it in
No,
April.
that, the April meeting will be the 24-25 fiscal year.
Okay, good.
We'll be back on,
Back on
we'll be
track.
back on track unless at some point in time.
Just so we all
decide
understand.
That
11
we don't
October.
like 9:30, or we don't like the
Right.
third Tuesday, or.
So we go October and then April.
Yeah, then we're back to,
Regular order.
we're kosher. Right.
Okay.
Okay, that was done. Rick, you had legal representative, that's all I have written down.
Yeah,
In addition.
You know, I've been calling Tom Greer, and no one's slapped me up the side of the head yet. But no one, you know, at the township, it's lawless. I mean, anybody can call a lawyer whenever they want, which I personally think is kind of crazy. But so I don't know if there's any rules here. But anyway, the best way to do it, in my opinion, that the authority, these members of the board need to be talking directly to attorneys. They should not be talking to their attorney through an intermediary. So we all don't want to be talking to the attorney at once. Ka-ching, 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 right? So usually what I've experienced on boards that I've either worked for or been on before, mostly worked for, is that a member of the board is designated as the legal representative and point of contact, and that the other members of the board, if they have a legal issue, they contact the legal representative and ask them one of two things. One is, will you call the lawyer on this issue and get an answer, or given the unique nature of it, is it okay if I call the lawyer? And so I think I'm not asking for because this is a discussion and potential action item. I'm not asking for action today, but I think, and whether we do it, maybe the appropriate time to do it is in an annual meeting. I think we need to establish the person that is the point of contact for the legal representative. In the meantime, unless the board tells me to keep my mouth shut, I intend to continue to have contact with Tom Bureau.
Yeah, and there's no rule against that, so I don't, my personal opinion is go ahead, and it's fine. It saves time, and you lose less in translation on, the regular telegraph, so.
I know Tom, I have a relationship with Tom from another matter.
Right.
It's positive, and I had a very good conversation with him this morning.
Okay, good.
Just to follow up on Mr. Cross, he's correct, we should have it designated. I think the way to do it is, you may want to do is suggest that it's the chairman who's designated, but the chairman has the right to appoint that authority to somebody else. And then we don't have any names involved, because you don't want to be based on individuals. So you base it on the chairman, but the chairman can then designate other people if it's proper.
Yeah.
Because it does kind of sometimes vary from case to case what the issues are. But that way there's a protocol. You're right. You don't want 5 authority members calling the attorneys that are getting large legal bills after that. So I think having a protocol that should be the
So, yeah. Okay, good. Moving on, the job description for the liaison.
We need one. I don't think one exists. Yeah, we need one, and we need to decide. I mean, obviously, we need our liaison involved in it, and the clerk, but the board needs to be involved in developing a job description. We have a job description for the clerk. We have a job description for Chris. Well, we need one for the liaison. So that's all I can say.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think we should ask for that by the next meeting, and you, Cindy can write it, or with help, with anyone who wants to. But I don't know what her roles are other than taking minutes. If she's helping with bill collection, sending out bills, so, and we don't have to get into it, you don't have to tell me right now,
Right.
but let's find out what she does, and therefore,
What we
there's some
need.
accountability.
And then what we need also.
Right,
what we
yeah,
expect.
yeah, I think that's a very reasonable request, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe Joni can search it like that as she develops it, and we can get our feedback, so that
Yeah.
the next meeting, we're not having a belaboring conversation about accountabilities.
Yeah, no, let's, it'd be discussion, back and forth, so. Anything else on that? I think we're all in agreement that that's something we all need. Okay,
We just need it.
we have no action items, so we are at our final public comment period. Those, Campbell had his hand up first, and then Betsy.
Real quick, a couple of things. Back to this pressurized main. So I imagine in design drawings at one point, did they have ductile iron in it?
I did not see that in there. I don't know where that come from. The only ductile we
Because
found was
it is
Northport.
kind of odd that it bounced around
Yep,
like that.
yep.
And but you mentioned C900 pipe as well as HDP.
Yep.
So C900s, it leaks, as I recall. And you're running untreated water through that. Wasn't it HDP you want for the whole system? Or, the dirty end of it? Cleveland can be C900, but anyway, that's just an
I mean,
observation.
well, when you do pressure testing on.
Okay,
well,
I'm just
yep,
gonna
yeah.
step
you're right.
in here.
Yep.
and-
Okay, yeah,
We
that's
don't
my
want back and
comment.
forth, and this
That's
is
my
something you
comment.
could have conversation
So
with
the other
them.
thing is
outside
to do
school.
with the sewer, the costs and the grant writing and everything. So that's for the sewer. Is there anything for sustainability? I mean, a big cost for the sewer is electrical costs. You no longer have the turbine, the wind turbine up there. You've got some solar. Can you get grants or money funded for better, more energy services, sustainability grants, or money just on that? It's a little different than the sewer, but it's your municipality. Maybe that's something you can look at, because that would be a cost that is down the road. That's all.
Thank you. Okay, Betsy, you were next. You want to unmute yourself?
Thank you. I think just a housekeeping issue. I did not hear the board introduce the representative from Gosling Zubik. I don't know what his name was. But in listening to you, I'm concerned about one thing with the REU schedule, et cetera. And going back, because I've been involved with this whole thing from the get-go. There always used to be an REU meeting once a year where the township and the village got together to set the rates, et cetera. As I remember, and I will have notes in my files, but the original meetings always were the NLTUA board that set the rates, et cetera. I don't know how this got even questioned, that it wouldn't be a village issue. Unless we've been operating for 14 years incorrectly. So I'm a little concerned about that. But beyond that, I'm concerned that in the beginning, when these rates were set, they were set for the old hospital property. They were set for where the proposed fairway project is. So the plant was built based on a certain capacity, based on how they felt those properties were going to operate. Now, if I heard Gosling representative correctly, sounds like he feels that there is enough capacity for the plant to handle the fairway project. But is that to the detriment of the hospital project? In other words, who's on first? How are you going to figure out exactly what the plant can hold? And are you going to penalize the second person in line who is also in the district? So I didn't hear that discussion. Don't know if that will come, but I would like to think that this board will evaluate that, because if the original REUs were for, say, 5 REUs for the old hospital property, and you're now looking at 40, then, and you're saying that they need to hook up, which I agree, then the SAD has to provide the capacity for those properties and those developments within the district. And I think a feasibility study is where we need to go, but that's typically borne by the developer. However, some of these properties are within the current SAD. So I don't know how you resolve it. I just want to put it on the table that is a concern from my perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, Betsy. John?
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, God, I had a leg cramp for the last
Yeah.
30 minutes.
One minute.
So, my concern is kind of hers too, and it was, but since from what I garnered today, this decision even hasn't been made whether, they have the authority to discount fees. But, my concern is the same. It's like, what are the parameters and who's going to establish the parameters for, who is allowed a discount? And what type of precedent might that set for further developers? If you allow one person, a for-profit development, to get a substantial discount to connect to the sewer, what about the next person in line? What type of precedent would be set for every further development within the sewer district? And that's my concern. In a nutshell, and it sounds like at this point it's kind of moved because we want to know, right, if you have the authority to do that. And I guess that's pretty much it. And that kind of reiterates what she said too.
Great, thank you. Anybody else with public comment? Anybody in Zoom land want to unmute? All right, do we have a member comment? I'm good.
Great job, Mr. Chairman.
No,
Appreciate it.
didn't know I was starting until,
Appreciate your filling in.
Thank you. All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I so move. Second.
All right, we are adjourned. At 11:17.
Thank you.
Don't worry, I got going. I'm not.
Sorry.